Good morning, everyone. We're back in our series again. There's so many things going on for quite some time now. I don't know where to begin and how to end this, but I'll try my best. First things first, I just want everyone to know that here in New York, we have the IDNYC. It's a program that has been initiated and going on for quite some time. I just like to remind everyone that for people who don't have any documents, especially in New York City, there's a program by the city government that will allow them to secure a government-issued ID. Obviously, this is to facilitate whatever transactions they have to do with the city in terms of services. And in relation to that, also in securing a license, which has its own practical purposes also. So go to cityidnyc.gov or call 311. It's so easy to Google it and try to secure one for purposes of a state ID or a New York issued license. Next, we just want everyone to know that the courts in New York, or at least specifically New York, has been closed since March 23rd, 2020. The lockdown was declared by Governor Cuomo officially on March 20. That was a Friday. Supposed to take effect March 22nd. That's a Sunday. And the day after that, the courts have been closed. Closed for purposes of actually conducting a hearing before the immigration judges, except for some detained cases. It has been open though for filing and for motions, but effectively the support staff in the court system was actually not available. So the courts officially opened after the 4th of July weekend. That was last week. And hopefully everything will go smoothly as we move on. Now, the problem that I just want to point out, that roughly there are, according to the Daily News, there are around 150,000 cases in New York City alone. There are around 40 to 45 judges. I've been to court twice since then. I believe the courts are scheduling one final individual hearing for each half of the day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So if we try to do the math, effectively there are 254 business days, excluding weekends, sick leaves, and vacation leaves of the judges. So there'll be probably around 45,000, I believe, cases a year. If everything goes smoothly and to perfection, which leaves us around 100,000 of the pending cases, not to count the number of notices to appear. I spoke to a clerk of the court. He said there are thousands of pending cases now that have not been filed yet in court. So it's a question of time how the court system could be overwhelmed by what has already been overwhelmed system before the pandemic. Now, in connection to this, the present administration actually issued a new policy regarding enforcement priorities. This was way back in March, the details of which still have to be implemented. When I say enforcement priorities, I'm talking about which person or whose case should be pursued first and should be enforced by way of prosecution before immigration court or by way of the actual removal of that particular person from the country. There are equities that have to be considered. That's why even though there's no official policy yet, I think we're back to the Obama years wherein there's a policy unspoken as of now regarding prosecutorial discretion, meaning a person could still be removable from the country, but there are cases that are more important that have to be prioritized than this particular person, such as people have criminal records, and therefore, because of the limited resources and personnel of the court system, those cases will, in the meantime, be administratively closed. In court, the judges and the trial attorneys have discussed this with me. I just want everyone to be aware that this may officially become the policy of the present administration as well, which to some extent makes sense because there are roughly around 450 judges nationwide. Nationwide, there are probably around 1 million cases before immigration courts as of today, more or less. Now, in relation to this, during the Trump administration, there was a policy wherein people who try to enter the country, who want to pursue whatever reliefs or applications they may have before immigration judges or courts, have been prevented from entering the country, and were forced or compelled to stay in Mexico, literally in refugee camps. Now, this number of people will be processed under the present administration, therefore adding up to the number of cases we already have in the country or before the immigration court system. Nevertheless, probably around 1 or 2 out of 20 cases have been allowed to go in. There's an ongoing program by the government to process each one, to assess the potential claim, the credibility, and the equities. For example, minor children are prioritized in terms of allowing them to enter the country and to pursue whatever applications or reliefs they may have. There's an issue to this simply because there's no clear standards, despite the good intention of the present administration. There are no clear standards against which claims or cases could be assessed objectively. So in the end, there's a potential problem of the subjective evaluation or assessment of these claims, not to mention the lack of training or clear guidelines for the people who are authorized to make such evaluation. Now, also in connection to the immigration courts and cases, I just wanted to aware, just like a few days ago, Senator Schumer, together with Senator Booker and Corleen from Oregon, filed a bill in the Senate that would essentially decriminalize marijuana. I have to state that nationwide, 18 states have actually legalized recreational use of marijuana. 27 states have decriminalized marijuana in their respective states. But under the federal statute, it is still considered and listed as a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no medicinal value at all, and therefore it is still criminal to possess or use, much more to deal with marijuana. Now, in New York, for example, there's a move to seal or to expunge prior convictions. The problem with that is that the federal statute, especially for immigration purposes, has not been in lockstep with what's going on with the states. That means, therefore, that if you were arrested and especially convicted of any offense in relation to marijuana, even possession thereof, much more dealing or trafficking thereof, you could still be disqualified for any relief before USIS, the Immigration Service, or the Immigration Court. There's an exception, single possession of marijuana, an amount of 30 grams, but there's a waiver for that. It's a long story, but at the end of the day, it is still considered as a Schedule I offense. Now, also, it's summer here in New York. There's so many things going on. So for everyone who wants to visit the state, I just wanted to know, obviously, before you enter the country, there's a PCR requirement, negative results as to COVID. But once you're here, there's no quarantine required. Vaccines are available, and there are many new sites in the city. I'm not selling the city, but just for people who are interested, we have the Little Island, lane, the inbound Manhattan Lane, Brooklyn Bridge has been dedicated to bikers lately. And also, I think when it comes to vaccine, I know a lot of people are reluctant to have themselves vaccinated, even here in New York. It's a matter of opinion, it's a matter of hesitation medically, because the vaccines, although widely used in the United States, has not been approved by the FDA yet, except for its emergency provisional approval. What that means is that for someone to retain or to gain employment anywhere in the United States, it could not be imposed as a requirement, much more for immigration purposes. So this is a relation to immigration applications also. But once it's FDA approved, there's a requirement for that. There's an opinion that probably before the end of the year, it could be approved permanently for permanent approval, final approval by the FDA. Therefore, it could be required as a condition for employment or continued employment, much more for attaining immigration benefits in the United States. Just like there's a requirement to have TB vaccine, for example. The previous vaccination that have been provided for through the years have been made mandatory for purposes of migrating to the United States. So I just want you to be aware of that. In connection to this, on a personal note, I just want to share with you, although I've seen a lot of people who have not been vaccinated, I do share with them what I know, and that hopefully they will consider things as we move forward, not so much for themselves, but for the people around us. I think I'm not a medical doctor, but it's a matter of comfort. On our day-to-day activities, we have to deal with people, and some people are just not comfortable with it. If you choose not to deal with them, that's fine. But if you have to, out of respect, we have to do the best how to accommodate that level of discomfort. Anyhow, also in New York, if you want to visit us, I just want you to know as to where these countries had been. Just like yesterday, I didn't even know this, but as of yesterday, barbers are allowed to cut the hair during on a Sunday. It is a law that has been in the statute books for some time, brought about by the puritanical roots of this country, have not been enforced, but it's still there. Meaning a barber could not actually cut your hair, but starting yesterday, people could do so without any repercussion. One of those things that I want to share with you. There's so many things going on. I wish I have more time. I wish I could discuss more, everything in detail. But as we go along, changes do roll out, and I just want you to be in touch, keep you posted, and hopefully share with you what I know at this point. So please be safe. One last note, the only reason that I've been repeating to everyone to be safe is that unfortunately for the past year, since May of last year, I know personally at least a friend or a very close member of the family who passed away a month. I just reflected on this last night, and I think I could not recall a year wherein I practically lost somebody I know personally at the rate of once at least every month. So that's very telling. Moving forward, please try to observe the protocols as the CDC said, and as what New York has been telling people. Try to have yourselves vaccinated, try to be respectful, and as I said, be safe. So have a nice day, everyone.